Baby, it's cold outside. Welcome to Pegwarmers, I'm Kevin, and I'm here to talk about toys. Today, we're talking about the worst snow G.I. Joe. Who's the worst Arctic Trooper in the original toy line? There are so many characters, at least a dozen snow characters, some of which have gotten multiple releases. And today, I'm taking a look at all of them and trying to figure out who's the worst. I had a particular character in mind when I kind of came up with this idea, and then the more I thought about it and the more I looked into who all the characters were, I softened a little bit. There are a lot of different releases, some of which I don't necessarily always think of as Arctic Troopers or don't pop into my head right away because I didn't have them as a kid. So as the pool got deeper, some of the characters didn't look quite as bad, maybe, that I initially had kind of been down upon. Did you grow up in an area where you got to play in snow? I loved playing with Snow Joes. I know people that grow up in Texas don't really have a need for them when they go outside to play. Maybe those people want Desert Troopers more often. I don't know if we got as many Desert Troopers in G.I. Joe as we did Snow Joes. It's kind of like the underwater figures. Some people love those guys, and some people don't really know what to do with them when they play. It's tricky when a guy's in a wetsuit and you don't have a little pond or a creek to play in. So, today we're looking at the Snow Joes, and we're going to kick it off with 1983's Snow Job. Snow Job was the G.I. Joe's first Arctic Trooper dressed in all white. He's got some brown and black details, and then this pop of red for his beard, making him kind of stand out a little bit. This is one of the first Joes as we start to expand 83 with guys like Gung-Ho and Doc, right? We're expanding Tripwire. We're expanding the ranks of G.I. Joe. Not everybody has to be a green shirt anymore. He came with some amazing gear. He's got a backpack that can hold his skis and his ski poles. He also comes with the iconic G.I. Joe laser rifle. What a great figure. He is a little on the skinny side when compared to some of the other Snow Joes, but that's just kind of the way 82 and 83 was. I did not have Snow Job fresh off of a card as a kid, but I did get him early on in my childhood as a secondhand figure and played with him all the time. I had 2 Polar Battle Bears, and so he would often be manning one of those, and just had a ton of fun with him all the time. Took him out to play in the snow every winter when it would snow. Next up, we've got Frostbite. Frostbite is from 1985. He is another Joe dressed in an all-white parka. He's got a black holster and strap that goes around his chest. He does have a little blue Tampo patch on his arm. He's got a black beard this time, and he's got goggles that are not over his eyes, unlike Snow Job, so he stands out a little bit in their second outing. They're still very similar. They look like a great unit together. And he came with the Snowcat, one of the coolest vehicles. It's a tracked vehicle for in the snow. It can carry a bunch of troops. It's got some cool built-in missile launchers, a windshield wiper blade, really a fun toy. And if he's not amazing, the fact that he's a vehicle driver and comes with this much paint deco and a unique gun, I'm putting both of these guys in my superior rank. I also want to mention I'm not really covering the Cobra Snow characters because Snow Serpent would have come out, and he's a fantastic figure, but I'm focusing on the Joes. Next up is 1986's Iceberg. He was actually the inspiration for Worst Arctic Figure when I came up with the theme for this episode. Last year I planned to do a lot of videos reviewing the 1986 Joes. That plan didn't really come to fruition, but the first episode I did in that series was the G.I. Joe Go to Sci-Fi in 1986, and the second one was going to be the worst Snow Joe. But as I started kind of digging out the Snow Joes, I realized that even though I think Iceberg pales in comparison to the first 2 figures, he's not as bad as some of the other releases. So why don't I like Iceberg here? He's a fine figure. I think his sculpt is really good. He has a little bit of light blue on his parka that helps him stand out a little bit, although it makes him not gel with the other 2 guys quite as much. My biggest problem with him is he came out in 1986, which I think is a high watermark year for G.I. Joe, and he's one of 2 figures in that entire wave that only came with 1 accessory. Monkey Wrench and Iceberg both just have a gun. They didn't come with a backpack or anything else. Some of the characters from that year had fantastic accessories. And so for Iceberg to just come with one big white machine gun and nothing else, it's a disappointment. You know, Frostbite doesn't have a backpack, but he's driving a vehicle. Iceberg's going to be out in the elements, and he doesn't have any survival equipment with him. He doesn't have skis like Snowjob did. He's just slogging it in the snow with nothing but a big machine gun. And that's always kind of had a bad taste in my mouth. I'm not saying he's a bad character or a bad figure, really, but a disappointment. I have Iceberg on my okay level. Next up from 1987, we've got Avalanche. This is the Battle Force 2000 entry into the GIJoe Snowtroopers. He's an oddball, I'll give you that. Battle Force 2000 is all a bunch of oddballs. And this Snowtrooper with his sci-fi boots and sci-fi helmet, I don't think that he's necessarily a fantastic Snowtrooper, but if you're going to make a Snowtrooper for Battle Force 2000, I don't think he's a bad entry. I like that they went with a little something different. He's got a little bit of camouflage with the brown spots. He's got the fun sci-fi silver paint all over the place and his little ray gun here. He's got a little headpiece. Not quite as good as a backpack, but, you know, he has 2 accessories. Is he better than Iceberg? Well, that depends. Let me know in the comments down below. I put Avalanche on my okay bar. I kind of made him equal to Iceberg. Next up from 1988, we've got Blizzard. Now, this is a figure that I had as a kid and thought was fantastic. He is definitely like Snowjob version 2. He's not actually Snowjob version 2, but he could be like him as far as they went all out on this figure. He's got a removable helmet. This is a first for Snowjoes, right? He can come in and warm up, take off his gear, so he doesn't have to have the goggles always on top of his head or always over his eyes. He's got a backpack that can hold his skis and his ice climbing boots, and it's got handlebars and a little gun on it so he can use it like a little vehicle or a sled or carry his gear. Super fun. The only thing that I don't love about Blizzard, he comes with 2 white weapons, and I think their handles are really hard to put in his hands. I don't know if it's the sculpting of his hands or the sculpting of the weapons or both, but he has a very fat handle on his machine gun and his pistol, and I always found it almost impossible to put them in his hands as a kid, and to this day, I really don't do it because I don't want to break his thumbs off. But the rest of his gear is phenomenal, and I can overlook the gun a little bit. You can kind of wedge the bottom of the gun in his hand, but it doesn't stay real well. I know I've definitely put them in there before, but at this advanced age for these action figures, I'm not risking thumbs for that, something like that. He's on my superior list. 1988's Tiger Force Frostbite. Tiger Force is repainting captured Cobra vehicles and putting them back into battle. They're also repainting some Joe stuff too, I guess. Were they supposed to fight in the desert or the jungle? Seemed a little unclear. Dusty was part of the team. They had a boat though, but they also had a tracked snow vehicle called the Snowcat, or in this case, the Tiger Cat. Still the same figure, good sculpt. I like the Tiger Force pattern on him with the brown jacket and the tiger pants, but they changed his beard from black to tomato orange. That was always a problem for me as a kid. I didn't like it when Joe's faces completely changed or, the hair coloring changed wildly. So that knocks him down a peg, but I think he's a fun Tiger Force figure in general. I think they probably could have packed anybody with the Snowcat, in Tiger Force colors, and it would have been okay. It's not like when a vehicle gets reassigned to a new unit, the driver has to go with it. But they did that, right? They made an all-new character to fly the Rattler because it switched from Cobra to Joe. But Frostbite went with it. Again, not my favorite. He's in my why category. Why did he need to be part of Tiger Force? And why did they change his hair color? Next up from 1989, we've got Stalker, the Tundra Ranger. Stalker was a figure from 1982, an important character that continued on in the cartoon and the comics a fair amount, so it was good to get a new action figure version of him. This one is famous for being the one with the kayak. Everybody remembers that figure. An interesting choice, lots of interesting gear, but a pretty good Arctic figure. He's got a white parka on. He is still wearing like green camo fatigues that kind of tie back to his original figure, although it's not the same camo pattern. Maybe these are actual snow pants, though, instead of, his regular uniform underneath. But he's got great winter gloves. He's got the knit cap instead of his beret this time. And he came with a kayak that he could wear on his back that had a giant machine gun on it. He has a gun for himself. He's got a cool polar mask that he can wear. He's got a big knife. He's got a backpack with a radio on it and a bar that can build the whole thing together to make it a kayak with a buoyancy prop or whatever you want to call it. Overall, a pretty cool figure. I kind of wish they'd figured out a way for him to hold all his gear. Him carrying the kayak with the giant machine gun on the back of it was maybe a bit much. But I have Stalker on my superior tab. Next up in 1989, we've got Windchill. He was a vehicle driver for the Arctic Blast. The Arctic Blast is a fairly weird snow vehicle. I might even go so far as to say terrible snow vehicle when compared to the Snowcat. I had it as a kid, played with it with the Snowcat all the time. Those were the two vehicles I took outside. Sometimes the Polar Battle Bear would make it out there with me. But he is a pretty cool snow figure that I played with quite a bit. He's got a white parka with some gray camo on it. He's got gray pants. He comes with one of my favorite GIJoe guns, really. I just love the way his weapon looked. For some reason, I thought it was super slick and would give it to Stormtrooper action figures all the time with my Kenner Star Wars figures. He came with a set of skis, and each ski has a machine gun on it, so while he's skiing, he can be shooting bad guys. They're phenomenal. The one downside to this figure, I would say, he has blonde eyes. They used yellow paint for his mustache and his hair, so his eyeballs are yellow. Sometimes they would make that correction, but sometimes they would just paint the eyeballs yellow too, and I think that's his biggest weakness. But I thought he was a super fun figure as a kid. I think he's pretty decent, and I've got him on my good tab. Next up, we've got Subzero from 1990. He's got a really nicely sculpted parka. He always felt extremely tall to me. He's just very skinny and lanky. He's got a little bit more of an Eskimo look with the way the fur goes around his hood. He doesn't have goggles sculpted on his eyes or on top of his head, which most of the characters seem to imply they could cover their eyes if needed. He does come with quite an array of accessories. He's got a huge backpack. He's got a big machine gun. He's got snowshoes. He's got a mortar. A pretty good figure. I think my one main downfall for him is it's almost like too much gear. It's hard to get him to carry it properly. I didn't have him as a kid, but Sub-Zero's not bad. I've got him on my good tab. Next up from 1990, we've got Coldfront. Coldfront is a vehicle driver. He came with a fancy gun. He's got a visor that should be permanently attached to his head. He also has a microphone. So this guy is a figure that is expensive to complete because vehicle driver with the multiple small accessories, they all got lost inside the vehicle and rattled around and fell out on the floor, and he's hard to find now. Overall, looking at him, though, he could be Avalanche version 2 if they hadn't blown up Avalanche and the rest of Battle Force 2000. I don't think there's anything new here. He's like a techno snow trooper. He's Frostbite in Avalanche's outfit. You know what I mean? So nothing really new there. He's kind of cool looking, but like I said, didn't really add anything to the Joe roster. So because of all that, he's on my okay tab. 1991 and 1992 didn't see any new Snow Joes. There was a new update to the Snow Serpent for Cobra, but there was a lot more desert figures in 91, with Desert Scorpion and Dusty coming out. We got some Desert Camo Dukes, and it kind of makes sense. We were in the middle of Desert Storm, so why wouldn't they be making desert figures? We were watching guys in chocolate chip camo on TV every night. 1993 brought about Frostbite version 2. So Frostbite version 1 had a black beard, version 2 had an orange beard, version 3 has a brown beard, so he just changes his beard with every new uniform he gets, I guess. This figure's okay. I bought him as a kid, even though I had the original Frostbite. Mostly a friend of mine loved him and thought that his hockey mask thing was really cool. I like that he came with a shotgun and a machete, but I don't really love white accessories. So I picked him out as a kid, and I don't really know why too much, but I did oftentimes share his accessories with the other Snow Joes. He's got some gray camo, he's got some green straps, some orange grenades, some typical, like, attention-grabbing color splashes on a Snow Joe for the 90s. Frostbite version 2 is just okay. Also from 1993, I've got Iceberg version 2. Now this Iceberg does have some yellow on him, a yellow ski mask and yellow gloves, some yellow bullets, which I'll excuse yellow bullets, they're usually brass anyway. I think he's kind of a cool design. I like the ski mask. He comes with a snowboard and other cool accessories, even though they're all white. He has a missile launcher, but, that's just the era. I kind of like this version more than the 86 version, as far as him having something different, something unusual. We hadn't had a ski mask, a baklava kind of mask before, on a Snow Joe, so I give him some bonus points there. His card art did show him having green instead of yellow, and I think that would have been a fantastic figure, and definitely would have made him way above the 86 version. But overall, I give 93 Iceberg a good rating. Also in 93, we got Snowstorm in 2 paint schemes, because in 93, GIJoe started releasing a lot of the characters in double paint schemes. Why they did this? Just to get more figures out there without spending a lot of money on development. They could use the same paint masks, just switch the colors around. So he came out in a white version and a blue version. Now this figure is wearing a techno snowsuit. Think Mr. Freeze from Batman. He's got a helmet with a clear visor. He's got big chunky boots. He's got some armor. It's not a bad sculpt. This is like many of the 90s figures where halfway decent sculpts that got terrible colors. So I've got orange Snowstorm on my Y category. Why release him in bright orange? He looks kind of terrible. Ugh. And I've got the blue version on my weird tab because it's better, but it's still odd. Alright, at least blue and white works kind of okay for snow, but I feel like this one really just looks like an astronaut. And this is something for a different video, but why didn't Hasbro use this guy for Star Brigade? They repainted Eco Warriors characters that are wearing hazmat suits as astronauts, and they had this mold laying around. You're crazy. 1993, Ninja Force, Wave 2, had to get in on the action with Arctic Troopers. We got Bushido, the Arctic Samurai. Bushido wears all blue and white. He's got a little bit of tiger striping camo as it fades from one to the other. He's got a samurai helmet that looks a little too small to actually fit a human head in there. They should have looked at Budo and figured out how to make it removable or at least a little wider. But not a terrible figure. He's got the kung fu action chopping here with those weapons that would go on to, kind of be used for a lot of the Street Fighter and Mortal Kombat figures. It's not a bad figure. He's probably one of the tamer color schemes on Ninja Force besides Nunchuck, who is actually looks like a military guy. Not bad. Not bad at all. I've got Bushido on my OK tab. Next up is a mail-away set called the Arctic Commandos. These are repaint figures that all came with one accessory. Fun little set that you could mail away for. And, they picked decent figures for the most part. We've got a repaint of Arctic Stalker in much more muted colors, really. He's mostly white now. His brown is a little duller, no bright green. But the original one was a good figure. This one I think is a little bit more boring, but not bad at all. We've got a repaint of Snow Serpent in a nice ice blue color. Again, I'm not really touching on the Cobras, but that's a cool repaint. We've got Subzero in a bluish green parka this time. The original figure was pretty good. Obviously, we lose the cool accessories, but again, not a bad repaint. And then, I don't really get it, but we've got DJ, the lone surviving member of Battle Force 2000. They couldn't put Avalanche in here because he's dead. They should have repainted Snowstorm or one of the other figures, but they wanted to go with somebody a little older, I guess. So they grabbed DJ. He comes with his antenna. He comes with a gun. They did him up in white and gray and icy blue. He doesn't look terrible. I don't really know why we need DJ on the battlefield. But, hey, version 2 of DJ. this is going to land them in the good territory. Moving on to 1994, we've got a black and gray repaint of Snowstorm. I really like this paint job for him. If it was white and black, if it was white and gray, if it was black and gray, like any of these color combinations work. I still think he looks like an astronaut, but if he's a snow trooper, if this suit keeps him warm in the snow, which is what they claim, this may be my favorite paint scheme for him, because it just looks pretty cool. I give this version of Snowstorm a good rating. It's 94, we're repainting everybody. This time, Ninja Force is Shadow Ninjas. It's 1994, we're repainting everybody. Ninja Force is now Shadow Ninjas. They were going to be transparent figures, but then they decided to use color change plastic. So you can dunk them in cold water to make them turn clear, dunk them in warm water to give them a blue tint. It's the Snow Ninja you fell in love with during Ninja Force, but now he can change colors. And he's played with out in the snow because he's a snow ninja or a snow samurai. So he's probably going to be changing transparent and getting color back based on putting him in the snow and touching him with your hands. It's not a bad idea. I actually think it kind of works. Maybe the best out of the Shadow Ninja guys. So, Bushido gets an okay. When I started this journey, I forgot this figure existed. I didn't include it when I was really hating on Iceberg version 1 and thinking, he didn't bring anything new to the table. He came with one accessory, which was kind of lame. Just didn't live up to the cool snow troopers we'd had so far. But it also took me a while to find him, because even after I did remember him, I couldn't figure out where he was. My GIJoe organizational system for some of the 90s figures just is not great. But in 1994, we got version 2 of Windchill. I like Windchill as a figure, as a character, but I never had the Blockbuster as a kid. This figure is very plain. And I think he probably does deserve worst action figure. He's got the blonde eye problem. They didn't paint in his goggles, which is a main feature on his head to not get painted in. They used the same paint mask as version 1 for his jacket and gloves, but they used dark green paint over a green plastic. What's the point? Make it gray, make it black, make it white, make it anything else to make it interesting. This is a lame, boring figure, and he didn't get his skis. So I really just don't like this guy. So if I come back and revisit, originally I thought Iceberg was pretty bland and one of the weaker figures from 1986. I think that's part of my problem, is I hold 86 in such high regard, and I love those figures so much. And he's fine, but not great for 86. Right? I guess they can't all be winners. I'm going to say Snowstorm is a cool sculpt, but a weird execution for a snow trooper. Arctic DJ seems a little odd to me. And Windchill. I think these are the guys that are up for worst figure. And I think I've got to let go the fact that I hold 86 figures to such a high standard. Iceberg really doesn't deserve the heat. The fact that Snowstorm came out during the neon era, I can't hate on him for having neon colors when nobody was coming out in realistic colors, so I guess he's out of the running. It really does bring me down to these guys. DJ's not actually even an Arctic Trooper, so how can I hate him as the worst Arctic Trooper? And it really does come down to Windchill. I'm sorry, buddy. You kind of suck. I did want to show off real quick that the GIJoe Collectors Club did a membership figure of Iceberg one time based on that version 1 figure. It's not 100% accurate to the vintage figure like the outfit is. He's got a different weapon, but he comes with a backpack and a snowboard, taken from version 2. He's got a missile launcher on there. This figure kind of wows me because he comes with a weapon. He comes with some survival gear. He comes the way to get around the snow. He's got the full package, which is what the original Iceberg was kind of missing. But obviously this is a new sculpt era and not part of the original line and doesn't fit to the same budgetary restrictions as these other guys. I would love to know from the designers of the 86 line if there was planned accessories for Monkey Wrench and Iceberg and they got dropped. Snake Eyes lost all his paint in 82 to make the rest of the line fit. There's some characters that came with lots of equipment that year, so I I would love to know if there was concepts that were dropped on those guys, but I've never heard anything definitively in that direction. In the comments down below, let me know who is the worst Arctic Trooper for your money. Is there anybody that you really despise? Anybody that you think I'm throwing shade at that deserves better? Do me a favor, hit the like button, share this video with a toy collecting friend. If you want to support the channel further, hit us up on Patreon. But as always, thanks for hanging on the peg with me.